And it happens to be over here on the 1st of October in the year 1697 was the passing of Rabbi Moshe ben Mordechai Zacuto Z'tl, as we could pronounce his name in Hebrew as Rabbi Moshe Zacuto. He was one of the great rabbis. I think he was born in Amsterdam in English year 1625, and he passed away in Mantubo, to be precise, on Tet Zayin Tishrei, that's the second day of Sukkot, in the English year 1697. So we're talking about around 325 plus years ago. He was a great rabbi, a Kabbalist over there, great poet, wrote loads of different Torah songs and poetry, was one of the great rabbis of his specific era in of itself, from Portugal, from Holland very much so, and he was nicknamed, if I'm not mistaken, the Ramaz, also, which was nickname he had, would later on be a great rabbi also in Italy. So let's explore some of the highlights of the great rabbi's life in of itself. So we said before, he was a great Kabbalist and a poet. He was born, I think the family were a Portuguese Marano family that lived in Amsterdam. He studied various different Torah Jewish subjects under, there was a great person named Saul Levi Mortiera, who was a great rabbi, I believe, in Amsterdam, and also was born in Venice, respectively. He also studied very secular. He had worldly knowledge also, which he learned. He was very proficient, especially in the Latin language. He was a pupil also of Mortiera, and as a youth, I think while he was in Amsterdam, he learned, actually reported over with Baruch Spinoza, who was a great, one of the philosophers of Portugal, of Jewish origin, who many people would know much about, I'm sure, especially in the series that are you watching. He was into Kabbalah even, I think, from the time of his youth. It was reported over. He fasted 40 days at one stage in time when he was young. Because I think to make sure that his studies would be good. He learned a huge amount of Gemara, Talmudic studies in of itself. He went from Amsterdam, I think was very well traveled. He learned in Poland also at one stage in time, and would travel also to Venice, I think in the year 1672. And would come and go from and help out different Polish communities, if I'm not mistaken, within regards to fundraising over there, and while at the same time becoming a huge source of inspiration wherever he went. I think he actually intended to travel to the Holy Land in of itself, but I think when he was actually staying in Venice, he was a rabbi in Venice, many of the congregants over there tried to sway him away from going there, because remember, in that specific time period in of itself, it wasn't so easy to travel like nowadays. I think at one stage in time, he was also in Padua, if I'm not mistaken. Padua also had a great Jewish community. I think it's in Veneto, which is part of northern Italy of itself, respectively. We've actually mentioned that. I think from the year 1645 until the summer of 1673, he was very much inside that specific area in of itself in Italy. He was called to Mantua, I think, where he actually got a specific job, I think from the year 1673, and was there for a good 24 years, if I'm not mistaken, working as a rabbi, and very much so. He was a great Torah learner, he had great diligence, and studied Kabbalah under, I think, the Talmid of Rabbi Chaim Vital, who was one of the famous, I think, students of the Arizal's era. His student was Rabbi Benjamin Halevi, who I think came actually to Italy from Tzfat. They were very much traveling from Italy and Tzfat, some of the great rabbis, back and forth. And I think he was established a seminary for learning Kabbalah, if I'm not mistaken. He had various different students, including Rabbi Benjamin HaKohen and Rabbi Avram Rovigo, who we mentioned about also. And many times they would have visited each other. He composed, was reported over 47 liturgical poems, and many of it was to do with Kabbalistic intentions in it, and which very, very interesting. I think many of it was, some of them were edited and was printed at later stages, and some of them were also incorporated in various different prayer books. He wrote down 10 shil poems, let's say, for Tikkun Shuvavim, I think in the year 1712, if I'm not mistaken, or 1740, and I think it was for a service that was before Rosh Chodesh. Also, I think different tefillot for Hoshana Rabbah, and various different other occasions, all in the spirit, let's say, of Kabbalah. He authored a poem containing 1,000 words, each beginning with the letter Aleph. I think it was called Aleph Alpin, if I'm not mistaken, a long poem. There was also the Tofte Aruch and Li'Iferno Vik Oranto, I think that was printed in Venice, respectively, in 1715 and 1744, which speaks about different, let's say, God forbid, people suffer punishments, so on and so forth, and many other different great books. I think he quotes long quotations in one of the books of Shorshei Hashemot, long quotations of the great rabbi, the Kabbalist from Fez, Rabbi Isaiah Bakish, if I'm not mistaken, who lived around the 16th and 17th century. And let's explore some of the works that he wrote. There was a lot of great Torah books, innovations that he wrote in of itself. So let's see it, including the Kol Haramaz, which is a Perush on the Mishnayot, which is printed in Amsterdam. There was different Chalakim of the Kol Haramaz, Chelek Aleph, Chelek Bet, Chelek Gimel, which came out, I believe, at around the same time period. Then there's Kol Haramaz also, which is on the Dinei, Ktivat, Stam, with regards to Sefer Torah, Tefillin, Mezuzot, Al Pi Kabbalah, from a Kabbalistic point of view. The Shut Haramaz, Sheilot and Shuvot, questions and answers of the Ramaz, which was, I think, printed in Venetia, if I'm not mistaken. There was a Shut Haramaz, which was dealing with different other dinim in of itself. Then there was the Shudad Dayaneh, which was Takanot, the Kihilot, Mantuba, with regards to different enactments that actually came upon the area of Mantuba. I think it was done together with the rabbi of the city, if I'm not mistaken. Then there was Tikkun Sofrim, which is Kifat Sefer Torah al Derech HaKabbalah, how you write a Sefer Torah through Kabbalistic ways. I think it was printed first up, I'm not too sure the exact year in of itself, but it was a great way in Saloniki, actually, I think in modern day Greece, if I'm not mistaken. I think there was also a publishing of it in Amsterdam. Then there was Shibulot Sheleket, which was on the Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, respectively. The Tanakh, which actually came out in the year, I think, Tafshin Pei. There was a Perush on the Yerushalmi also, which was left in manuscript. There was various different books on Tefillah, Kavanah, Piyutim, Tikunim, Bakashot, Vikinot, including the Beit Tefillah, the Breya Yomim, which was Seder on Tefillot, respectively, I think learning through the Arizal, the Elef Alfin, which was a Bakasha, which was another great book, the Seder Tikun Chatzot. There was also Seder Tfilat Derech al Derech HaKabbalah, which was a manuscript form. The Seder Pesach, which was also, I think, in manuscript form. Seder Kriya V'Tikkun Leil Shavuot, which I think was printed in Venice, if I'm not mistaken. The Machzor Minhag B'nei Roma, a Machzor which was actually incorporated for the Roman community, people living in Italy. Seder Mishmeret HaChodesh. Then there was the Tikkun Shovavim, which was on the Slichot, various supplications to Philot, and very much for the time period of Shovavim, from Shemot till Mishpatim, respectively. That was printed in Mantuba. Tikkun HaKriya Le'el Hoshana Rabbah, for the culmination of Sukkot, respectively. Kavanat Milah Birkot Beseder Katzeh. Then there was Luchot Even, which was Kinot, and in of itself, I think that was in manuscript form, if I'm not mistaken. Sever Kapanot, which was, I think, let's say, copyings from Rabbi Yaakov Tzemach in manuscript form. Biyu Hasodot, there was. Then there was a Tiftach Aruch, also, and then there was other great Kabbalistic books, also, including V'Yodai Bina. There was Perush Aruch al Sefer HaZohar, which I think that was in several different volumes, if I'm not mistaken. I think 3 different volumes. There was Perush al Tikunei HaZohar, which was printed in Livorno. The V'Yodai Bina, which was a Perush on the Zohar. Also, I think it was from Parshat Bereshit all the way to Parshat Vayetze, also in Sefer Bereshit. Then there's the Em Levina, also, which is based on Gematriot, numerical values, and Remazim, hints, let's just say, in of itself. Archei HaKinuyim. Then there was a Igorot Haramaz. There was Shorshei Hashemot, another great book. There was various other great books on Drashot in of itself. And he cannot. There was a Yodei Bina, Sidur Ramaz, Sefer Kavanot Morot Natan, for example. There was a Perush Ramaz, Le Zohar, and the list goes on. It was so many great works in of itself. Some song books in of itself, Shira Umachazot, including the Hen Kol Chadash, which was, I think, songs for the various different festivals, which was printed in Amsterdam. Yisud Olam, which was Altona, I think it was printed in, which was, I think, a drama. Let's say a poem or a series, let's just say in himself. A Tiftach Aroch, there was a Chidot Umalitzot, which was a manuscript, I think, and the Piyut or Agnus, Beluvan Hamachushaf, which was various different bakashot on on that specific thing. That a lot can be related over within one of the great rabbis from Italy in his day. He included among his rabbis was Rabbi Shaul Mortira and Rabbi Benjamin Halevi and Rabbi Yitzchak Mufozna. Among his Talmudim were great people: Rabbi Benjamin HaKohen, Rabbi Avram Ravigo, Rabbi Yehuda Bril, Rabbi Yeshua Ba'asan, Rabbi Aviad Shar Shalom Bazila. I think it was just his Hilula this week also, which you just related over video, I think in the last couple of days. And I think he was a rabbi of the Kehila of Venice, and also of Mantua, one of the great rabbis. He lived about 72 years approximately. He passed away at the age of 72, one of the great rabbis of his time. Please don't forget to light candles in his memory. His Hilula is on the second day of Sukkot, Tet Zayin Tishrei. Wishing you all well and blessings from Israel. Take care. Please subscribe to the channel. We've covered about 430 rabbis of yesteryear. We're a community here. Like the videos, share the videos. Wishing you all blessings from Israel.